So again, the St. Mary's schedule was released just the other day, the full schedule. I'm thinking about it. I think this is maybe the earliest I have ever seen the St. Mary's schedule be released from top to bottom. And so here we are, and it was a pretty strong schedule kind of coming into uh, this release of the full schedule, and then we got the one game I was kind of waiting for to be announced. So as we were kind of getting into these last couple of weeks, we already kind of knew, okay, St. Mary's is going to play San Diego State. They're going to play North Texas. They have Vermont on the schedule. They have Wyoming. They were going to be in the Wooden Legacy. So we kind of knew some of these games were already in place and were possible, and there was some more possibilities coming down the road because there was a few slots still left. And we started to see some of those. Colorado State popped up on the schedule release. That's a big one again. But they'll be coming to Moraga this time. I think I saw it's going to be the start of another home and home between those two. Strong matchup for St. Mary's. Missouri State comes in. This is the back half of that home and home. And then we kind of go down the schedule. New Mexico State, another solid team. And then the big one, the one that I was waiting for, like we had solid game. And I was waiting for the wow. Where's the game where I'm going to be like, wow, I have to make sure I watch that. And on December 3rd in Fort Worth, Texas, we will get St. Mary's against Houston. Again, Houston was a Ken Pom top 5 team. They were a net number 2 team at the end of last season. This is one of the best defensive teams in the country. It was one of the more physical teams in the country. They're going to be right there with a lot. They're going to be right there toward the top 5, top 10 this coming season. They'll be there. I'm probably most of the season. And the one thing that's kind of interesting, I think, just looking at the totality of the schedule, there are now, not counting the WCC teams, there are now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Potentially, there are 9 locked in and potentially 10 top 100 net games from a year ago on this schedule already in the non-conference. That is an impressive schedule going into conference play. Again, 10 top 100 teams, and 6 of those are in the top 60. Again, Houston, San Diego State, Colorado State, North Texas, Vermont, Wyoming. All those teams are top 60. Were top 60 a year ago. Wyoming should be there again. Vermont is a consistently good team. North Texas is expected to be good again. San Diego State is expected to be even better than a year ago. Houston has not taken that big of a step backward. Colorado State, while they did lose quite a few pieces, they're still expected to be in that mix. Also, if you actually take a look at it, St. Mary's has the potential, already has 4 Mountain West teams on their schedule and potentially a 5th if things go right in the Wooden Legacy, which I think this is the one thing you kind of look at. The Wooden Legacy, they're starting off with Vandy, and then they'll break out into, they'll get the winner, or I guess it depends again, if they'll either face Fresno State or they'll face Washington. Fresno State is the better matchup. That'll be the better game. Washington was a sub 100 team last year. Washington has not done much to improve upon that scenario. So now that it will be a like matchup, Gonzaga will also face Washington in the non-conference as well. But I think for where St. Mary's is, Fresno State is going to be a much better matchup. And again, looking at the totality of the schedule, this is maybe one of, if not the best schedule Randy Bennett has put together. It's very similar to what I would say that they had last year. Again, remember that they were in the Maui Invitational a year ago, and they had 3 high quality games in there. But at no point did they actually see a team that was going to equate what Houston is going to be able to give them. In fact, I'm trying to remember. I don't think that St. Mary's has ever played a team as good as Houston is supposed to be in the non-conference. So potentially, like if we then also include conference play, St. Mary's will have at least 3 cracks at a top 5 net team, twice against Gonzaga and then once against Houston. And again, there's a lot of people are very high on San Diego State this coming year. There's a possibility that San Diego State could join those ranks. And there's also a lot of talk that this is also reflective upon what Randy Bennett thinks about this team. That the better the schedule, the better that he feels about this team's chances going into next year. We saw this team go in with a 5 seed in what was an incredible season for them last year. When you think about just like the wins against Oregon, the win against Notre Dame, you think about the way they handled business against Gonzaga in Moraga. You look at the way that they handled Indiana in the NCAA tournament. You look at the way that this team, again, one of the best defensive teams in the country over the last 2 years. St. Mary's is going to be right there again, because again, if you look at what that roster looks like at this moment, they still have arguably the best perimeter defender in the conference in their backcourt. You have, I think, the one guy who seemed to but the one guy who was able to limit Chet Holmgren, as I think nobody had last year, in Kyle Bowen. You have another incredibly versatile defender in Alex Dukas. And I think we're going to see big things from Mitchell Saxon as he slides into what is likely that starter role. And then, you look up and down, this team is incredibly versatile. Now, they will be far younger than they were a year ago. There's a lot of first and second year players who are going to be asked to carry a heavier load this year than last year. Last year's team was a bit more veteran laden. Again, you remove Tommy Kuzi, Matthias Toss, you remove the Dan Fotus, and it is going to be a little bit of a different feel for this team, a little bit of a younger feel to this team. But that does not mean that they're not going to be just as versatile, if not more so. In fact, I think they're going to be more versatile than they were a year ago. Got a lot of 6'6" to 6'9" guys on this team who can guard multiple positions. Again, I have not seen anything from camp or anything like that yet. But on paper, I think they're going to be right there in the mix again. I've seen some of the projections start to come out of where they think St. Mary's is going to land. I already did see Joe Lenardi has them back in the NCAA tournament as I think one of the play-in games. At least that's what I saw first. And now with the schedule though, this could actually position themselves to be far better than just a play-in game. Because again, there are plenty of opportunities to get big wins. And now there's also you're not so dependent upon having to get every last one. Where in years past, St. Mary's maybe there were 1 or 2 of those big non-conference games and they have to get it. They don't have to get every last one. Kind of like last year. You kind of think about some of those they didn't beat San Diego State. Well, they didn't beat Colorado State. But they did enough against the other big teams that they did face to be able to kind of get over the hump. Or in years past, maybe you only had games you only had Notre Dame or Oregon, and you have to get those because you don't have the other opportunities. St. Mary's has multiple opportunities to be able to get it done, and they're in very good position to be able to put together a resume that will put them squarely in the conversation on Selection Sunday in March. I will say a little bit about Houston. I was taking a look at their schedule because we talk about how big of an opportunity this is for St. Mary's. This is actually kind of a big opportunity for Houston as well, because they do not have a lot of big game opportunities in their non-conference schedule. I think I took a look at it, and there's like one or two games that kind of like stand out. Everything else is kind of ho-hum middle tier games. This is actually, I think, going to be a bigger game for Houston than it even might be for St. Mary's, which is kind of shocking and interesting to think about. But again, neutral site game. The one thing I've seen, the one criticism I've seen about the St. Mary's schedule thus far is the fact that there is not a true road game on that schedule. I believe right now it's broken out. It's like 8 at home, and then 5 are neutral site games. I believe that's the count. I need to double check and take a look at that. But because there's not that true road game, that's the one ding that maybe you could say, like, oh, why don't you actually go play somebody at their place? But they're also getting 5 opportunities to play on neutral site courts, on courts that you would play on in the NCAA tournament. They're going to be playing twice in Phoenix. Again, they'll be in Fort Worth. They get another one, I believe. Let's see, which one was another neutral site game. Obviously, of course, like the Wooden Legacy, which will be down in Anaheim. So they'll be playing on courts that are going to be very similar to that of the NCAA tournament. So again, that is also valuable experience, and something that we have seen St. Mary's do far more of in the last few years.